more so than I. But Willie's a very special human being, and the Lord has definitely, got a hold of him, and he is spreading the good word all over the place every single day. So, Willie.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
I also don't need a microphone, but I think I will use it. So, well, first of all, tough to follow my friend Eric, knowing his story and just what he has persevered through. And as he said, the Lord has probably given us all things that we've had to persevere through. So I'm going to share my testimony a little bit. I was a hard-headed kid, so my testimony, we could be up here all day. I can tell you what the Lord had to do, but when I share my testimony, I like to understand the audience. And so my wife asked me late last night, what are you doing? You've shared your story a ton of times. I said, yeah, but I want to seek the Lord to see how he wants me to share it from a different angle. I have a pretty interesting story. I was born in Richmond, California, Oakland area. I was the third child of four by a single mom who had less than an 8th grade education from down south. My mom had her first child when she was 14 years old, and she tells stories of basically being homeless and walking door to door asking if she could just sleep on the porch with my oldest sister, her brand new baby. My mom is my hero. I'll share some examples of people that God has allowed me to be in the same room with and work with. But there's never been anyone in my life other than my mom that has been my hero. And my mom is my hero because she raised 4 kids on her own, and then 2 grandkids on her own with less than an 8th grade education. And then she went from an 8th grade education to getting her GED, from a GED to a 2-year degree, from a 2-year degree to a 4-year degree at a small liberal arts college, and from a small undergraduate to her master's in education at the age of 63, realized her childhood dream and became a teacher. And she's still teaching to this day at the age of 70, and that's why she's my hero. And when you... But my mom, she raised me, my mom was married twice, and she had 4 kids by 3 different men. The only thing that I remember as a kid is that my mom married my father, and then he immediately moved us to Portland, Oregon. And that's out of the ghetto, the projects of Richmond, California, to Portland, Oregon, which was probably the biggest impact that God can do in my life. That's a far better environment to grow up in Portland, Oregon. I grew up there. We also grew up as Jehovah's Witnesses. So I had an idea about God, but nothing about this relationship thing. So early in my life, I kind of knew how to stand up for God because I had to say, no, I can't celebrate Christmas. No, I can't celebrate Halloween. I had to stand up for something, even though it was incorrect. I knew how to tell the teacher I needed to step out of the classroom, which later in life would be a skill and a benefit to me as I became a Christian, and I knew I was doing it for the right reasons, to be able to say no to things, to be able to stand alone if necessary, which you guys understand is important as a Christian. Sometimes God allows you to do that. So I grew up in North Portland, and in North Portland, I was usually the only black kid, just like today, let me check again. I was usually the only black kid in the school, if not a few instances I was one of 2 or 3 kids. Once again, it allowed me to, what I didn't like then, turn into a skill set that I would use later on in life. But I used to be in fights all the time, the N-word, spit on. There was a whole lot of things that I had to go through as a young person in North Portland that prepared me for walking in ministry, prepared me for going to missions trips in Africa and things like that. So in my earlier years, I was an okay student. I've never been a kid that got in trouble much, but I ended up hanging out with a couple of knucklehead guys, and one day after school, we decided to play pension games and stuff with maybe one or two girls. And a couple of the guys we were with, they kind of took it too far. They were pushing this girl, and they jumped on top of her. They didn't violate her, but they pinned her down and was teasing her too much. Well, the next day I came to school, and all of us, I think 3 or 4 of us, were called into the principal's office. And vice principal, and vice principal was also my teacher, and he says, "Willie, what are you doing?" And he said, "The other 3 guys are getting expelled from school." He said, "But I know that you didn't touch this girl, and I know that you have a different nature about you, but you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. And if you don't watch it, you're going to end up getting yourself in serious trouble." And he looked at me, and I was maybe 10 or 11 years old, and I was like a clown. I was an L shape. I had these long feet, probably size 13 at the time. And he looked at me, and he was I'll never forget it. His name is Mr. Slowowski. We called him Mr. S, Polish teacher. He looked at me and he said, "I'm going to start a basketball team, and you're going to pay your way through college because your family's poor. We're free, reduced lunch. You're going to pay your way through college. That's how you're going to get to college." I lived in Portland, Oregon, so at the time there was a basketball mecca, high school basketball mecca. It's called Benson High School. It's a private, you had to be accepted to that school. He said, "We're going to work over the next couple of years, and you're going to go to Benson, you're going to play basketball, then you're going to go on and play college, and that's how you're going to turn your life around." A few years later, older guys like Richard Washington, but more recent, AC Green is a graduate of Benson High School. So I would come in as AC Green is graduating from high school. So that was the first person that stepped in my life at an early age. I have a ministry that I started 5 years ago. It's called Hope Leadership Foundation. Maybe I failed to mention my father and my mother were only married for about 45 days. And so my father was in my life until I was about 5 years old, and I didn't really have much of a memory of him. And then he was gone. Mr. S represented to me a man that spoke into my life and then acted out things that helped me get on the right track. The next couple of years, I would grow. My freshman year in high school, I got cut from the team. I was kind of tall, but gangly, and I got cut from the freshman team. And once again, we were a basketball mecca. We had 5 strings in basketball. There was, 3rd string, 4th string, 5th string. That's how many. I think we had 2 freshman teams. And the coach said, "If you got cut, come up and ask me." And okay. He said, "Come up and ask me, and I'll tell you why you got cut, and then you can work on it and try to go out for the team next year." And once again, I come up to the coach and I'm looking at him, "Coach," and he said, "Come up and ask." And he looked at me, and I was tall, and I had these big feet. He goes, "Oh, I didn't mean to cut you." He put me back on the team. So that year, I didn't play unless we were 25 points up, 30 points up, 2 minutes to go. I was one of the worst players on the team. That year, one of the 80s Lakers teams, Magic Johnson, AC Green, AC Green had gone on from Oregon State, and they had won the national championship. And AC Green brought Magic Johnson back to our high school to speak to us. And Magic Johnson talked about players were made in the off season. This was at the end of our season. So I vowed at that time that I was going to work my butt off, and I was going to become a varsity player by my sophomore year. And I remember getting heckled and people saying, "There's no way you're going to make it." Well, I spent that whole summer dedicating myself to my craft, which was basketball. And by my sophomore year, a few games into the season, coach moved me from JV up to varsity, and I spent the next 3 years playing varsity basketball in there. We still, as a family, were functioning kind of as a Jehovah's Witness, but in that religion, playing team sports and things like that is not encouraged. So my mom had this battle. It's like, do I let my son play? He's good, he's getting better, and at the same time, the elders in the congregation are telling my mom that that's a bad association and I shouldn't be a part of it. Now, my mom went with her heart, and fortunately she let me continue to play. I went on to be one of the top players my senior year in Portland and all throughout Oregon. But not having structure in my life, my grades weren't that good. And the Prop 48 just had come out where you had to have a certain SAT score and a certain GPA, and I didn't meet either of those requirements. And so I was going to go to a junior college and play. I came all